We come to this feed for magic. We come to the Real Lovers Podcast to laugh, to cry, to converse. Because we need that. All of us. That indescribable feeling we get when the music begins to fade. And we go somewhere we've never been before. Somehow, heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Our hosts feel like the best of all of us, and discussions feel perfect and powerful. Because here, they are the Real Lovers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Real Lovers Podcast. We are back from a little break after our Real Spooky series that we did during the entire month of October. My name is Marley Silverbrand, your wonderful host, and I know from the people that are listening to this or watching this, you see the title. It's not the Chungking Express. I know after the Real Spooky series, we're supposed to be reviewing and talking about the Chungking Express, but due to some scheduling issues, we had to pass that to next week. But this week, we are talking about GoodFellas, directed by Martin Scorsese. It came out in 1990. And joining me on this podcast to discuss that film is she's the host of the Stoned and Social Potcast, Natali. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. And hi, how are you?
I am great.
I love this movie.
You love this movie.
I'm so excited to talk about this with you.
I am very excited to talk about it. This is my first watch, as most of these movies that we're watching in the Letterboxd Top 250, and I will save my initial thoughts for later because.
Oh wow! I didn't know you never had seen it.
Nope, never seen. I've never seen this movie before.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So I won't spoil my initial thoughts, but before we get into our review for GoodFellas, I like to do a little segment called What We've Been Watching. But Nat, it's been a while since you've been on the Real Lovers Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed the name to the What You've Been Watching segment to Last Four Watched. So okay. Nat, what are your last four watched?
Okay, my last four watched. You know that I normally don't watch a lot of things, but it's cold. The weather's getting weird here. So I've been to the movies. I went to see Killers of the Flower Moon. Whew. I did it stoned,
on
and then
brand.
my edible started wearing off, and so I was like, man, this is dragging on. I've been watching a UK series called Bodies.
I've been wanting to watch that.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little far out there, but I'm still watching it. I've got like one more episode. Mm-hmm. I finally just started Snowfall, which I've been dying to watch, and so literally only watched one episode so far, but I'm hooked. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth thing, technically I didn't watch it, but someone bought me a ticket for the Marvels, and I pretended to be sick so I wouldn't have to go. So like in spirit, I watched because my ticket was bought for it, but I didn't go because I was just like, no. Mm-mm.
Well, let's just say that the Marvels is really glad to have that ticket because they had an 87% drop off.
Oh, wow! A swing and a miss.
The one ticket, added to those poor.
I'm doing my part.
But Snowfall.
Yeah,
that's piquing my interest. Like, what's that about?
Snowfall is amazing, and it's set in the 80s, I believe. It's basically about the crack cocaine epidemic in its infancy in Los Angeles. And so it follows like a kid who's in a neighborhood where this kind of starts going off. And this kid is very clever. The CIA is involved, and it's just like, I think it was directed by John Singleton as well. So that might give you an idea of what it's like. He did Boys in the Hood.
Well, and he also did another movie that will remain nameless because we're still recovering from our trauma.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my last four watched.
Yeah. That's a great last four watched. I'm kind of disappointed you didn't see the Marvels because I had a blast with it, but
Yeah, maybe next time.
but at least you bought a ticket. So
Yeah, maybe on Disney Plus, not Plus, since that's being merged. Anyway, yeah, what's your last four?
oh my last four, I also saw Killers of the Flower Moon.
Ooh,
And let's just say that movie is 3.5 hours long.
yes.
So pushing to 4 hours with
Yeah.
20 minutes of trailers.
Yep.
Um, I will have more thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon when we're talking about Goodfellas because I am starting
Okay.
to especially
Mm-hmm.
after seeing Goodfellas, I have a new appreciation for Martin Scorsese just because he definitely I feel like he's kind of lost his touch a little bit.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. This is my take. Let's do this. Let's get to this. Let's hear your last four.
Yeah. So Killers of the Flower Moon. I also saw the Marvels.
Okay.
The Marvels is. I know you didn't see it. Well, you bought a ticket. You just didn't see it. But I generally had a pretty good time. Like I
Okay.
think it is definitely a step up over Ant-Man Quantumania, but that is a very low bar for it to jump over, in my opinion. Um, I'm just a fan of Brie Larson. I love Amon Villani
Yes,
as
I do.
have you seen Miss Marvel at all?
I've seen some of it. And so the thing is I wanted this to be better than what I heard,
Mm-hmm.
but I saw the trailer and I was like, I don't think this is for me. And so I think some people also saw that.
Yeah, the trailer is not good. The marketing
Okay.
for this movie was not good, and which is very unfortunate because well, as we're recording this, SAG-AFTRA struck a deal,
Hmm.
but before the Marvels came out, none of the actors could promote that, and I feel like the fact that
Yeah.
it's doing so poorly at the box office is probably is a that's a main reason why Amon Villani couldn't be on the red carpet and
Hmm. Hmm.
promoting like this movie. But I still think people should watch it. Like whether they're gonna wait for Disney Plus, like you said, like I think you would have a really decent time. It's only 90 minutes, like
That's nice.
compared to some of the other like Marvel MCU
Hmm.
movies like that
Hmm.
are over 2 hours long. But yeah, the Marvels is fine. Like
Okay.
I like if you are down for like all women team up, like I feel like you'll be uh
Okay.
served pretty nicely. But yeah, I saw the Marvels and then I rewatched Star Wars: The Force Awakens for an upcoming podcast that I'm a part of. That has episode hasn't been released yet, but
Okay.
we're doing just doing a Star Wars retrospective like series, and I was sort of not really looking forward to rewatching The Force Awakens because the sequel trilogy is just so hit or miss. But
Hmm.
this The Force Awakens has sauce. It has the
Okay.
sauce. Like I am actually was pretty surprised like how much I actually enjoyed like my time with this rewatch. But yeah, I feel like that one kind of gets lost a little bit just because Last Jedi is one of my favorites and everyone hates it. And yeah, and then lastly, it is like you said, it is at that cold month. We're starting to get into Christmas,
Hmm.
festive like Thanksgiving, and I rewatch this film like every single year on November 14th.
Okay.
It's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone if you're here in the
Ah.
states. Um,
Ah.
I
I'm working my
specific
way through them again.
Yeah, I specifically start my rewatch on November 14th because that's when that first movie came out, and
Mm.
I usually and then I just power through all of them before through the Christmas, and yeah, it's a
They are festive.
they're so festive. I love this first one especially just because you get to see like how young these actors were. Like
Hmm.
I actually forgot how young Daniel Radcliffe was when he
Oh yeah,
was
he's a
casted as
baby.
Harry Potter,
He's like
and
10.
yeah, so, like, he is 10. I think he was I think he was 11 actually,
Yeah, he's
and
very young.
yeah, because I remember the it was very controversial for him being so young because Harry Potter in the first book was like 12,
Hmm.
and everyone was like, "Oh, he's too young," and I'm like, "Let him age into it, let him
Yeah,
age into it."
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this film. Everyone likes to hate on it because Christopher Columbus directed the first two, and everyone says, "Oh, these are so lame. It's too kiddie." And I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah. I love I'm watching it with someone who's never seen the series but has
Hmm.
heard about them. And the the funny thing that was just so starkly noticed is how, it goes from, hey, these kids are just having a good time at magic school to shit got real. And the person we're watching it with was like, "Oh, what happened to all that like haha pranks at school stuff?" And we were like, "No, that's over now." And I love that about the movies. There's a big
Hmm.
divide between what's, very fun and lighthearted to what turns into a serious affair.
Yeah, and it gets serious like at the third movie, and it's directed
Hmm.
like I remember watching like that third movie like in the theater, and like I was so used to like because Chamber of Secrets is pretty dark, but not
Hmm.
as dark as like the later movies. And like I knew when I knew it was Alfonso Cuarón directing the third film, I was like, no, I'm in for a good ride. Like this
Hmm.
auteur director, Alfonso Cuarón, just directing like one of my favorite like book series of all time. But
Very
yeah,
cool.
those are my last four watched. Before we get into our review, though, uh, we did kind of touch on a little bit about SAG-AFTRA like striking a deal with the AMPTP, and that's the reason why we can cover
Hmm.
GoodFellas because GoodFellas is a Warner Brothers property, and it was struck work, not struck work anymore. But Nat, do you want to just like any thoughts on since you're within SAG, right? You're a SAG
I
member.
am. I am. Yeah, we've had a lot of emails about things that are going on, and I'm glad that it seems like this is, a agreement, but it's 18 pages long. The
Hmm.
summary of it takes forever to read through it. And I know it's not perfect. I just want to see the actors back working. And
Hmm.
I want them to really start thinking seriously about nailing down these definitions for different kinds of digital replicas that can be created, and how studios would have to obtain clear and express consent from the actors in advance of using their likeness, because that's what this is really about. It's this AI.
Yeah, like I read a little bit of the AI like section on the agreement, and one of the things that like immediately like jumped out at me was how vague like
Hmm.
these guidelines were. Like it definitely seems like something that the studios can look for a loophole and they can actually use
Oh,
AI,
absolutely.
and it's I don't know how I feel about that, but this deal is only 3 years,
Yeah.
which is very surprising. Like they were on strike for over 100 days, and only for a contract that lasts 3 years. That's like something. It's like we're just gonna do this all over again in 3 years.
Well,
So.
I think that's why the language is vague. I think it's twofold. I think it's vague because they don't know what AI might look like in a short amount of time, but also I think they are thinking long term. How do we make more money off of these properties and the people who make up those properties? And that's where I want to see some more structure in place to protect the actors. I know
Mhm.
eventually we're going to have to come up with something, but that just depends on how far AI is going to get into media. And as it stands now, it seems like AI gets a pretty big backlash in media.
Yeah, most definitely. Just
Hmm.
because, like, I remember just reading the WGA like agreement, and they specifically said that like a writer is a human.
Hmm.
Like, and I didn't read all of like the agreement, but from the AI portion that I read, none of that said that actors are human. I didn't see
Okay.
any of that language like in the
Hmm.
agreement, and like they might have stated that in other ways, but that needed to be clear. At least at least for from my perspective, the WGA felt more clear and concise.
Mm, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. I'm very we get so much information about it, so I don't read through all of it.
Hmm.
But I definitely feel like there are some points that are going to have to be faced head on at some point. And
Hmm.
I know right now what Apple, Disney, Warner, Paramount Global, all of these Lionsgate, they've all paused advertising on like certain media platforms. Like these companies have weight, and so these actors really need that protection because I mean the streaming was a big thing that they were talking about, not being paid per stream, and that's something that I don't think most people think about.
Yeah, and that was like another big portion of like this deal is that uh, they're calling it the language that I saw was they're calling it like streaming bonuses. I don't know if that means
Hmm,
residuals, because residuals were like residual checks would be like an
that's
actor would work on a
different.
project and
Yeah.
it would accrue like over time and you would just get a check at the end. What is that how it would work? Am I did I
So
get it?
yeah, you got that right. So I think
Hmm.
when they say things like this, they're going to have to start defining things like this. This three
Hmm.
years is going to give them more time to fine tune the language for hopefully a longer contract that suits both parties' needs. But really, like, pay these actors, like,
Yeah.
pay us.
Yeah, just pay actors.
Yeah,
Like, is it that hard to
yeah.
pay actors? It's like, and I know like I've talked to a lot of people that like they didn't understand why a lot of these actors are on strike because like all of them are millionaires, and I'm like, there
Hmm.
are over like how many? It's like 100,000 like people like in SAG-AFTRA, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not just your Tom Cruise or
No, it's like
mm,
64%. And so, again, that's just, I think, is people just didn't know this stuff.
mhm.
And the streaming services and the advance of AI technology is bringing this to the forefront. So I love that it's going to bring these conversations to the table for people.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I'm very happy that like actors are be able to are going to be able to get back to work. And I said this on the last podcast, like if streaming prices go up just because,
Oh,
and like I know having like streaming like price hikes are always like a bad thing, are
if
always a
they
bad
get
thing,
paid, though.
but at least they get paid. Like
Yeah, if they
that's
get paid, I'm for it.
yeah, I am for it for sure. But yeah.
Right now, Netflix and Hulu has been raising, and like none of them are seeing that. So if it's for that, then I'm all for that.
Yeah, uh, and I see a lot of these streaming companies pushing people to ad models as well. So maybe like that's like another way for these streaming companies to get revenue. Just because I've said this before, like I don't streaming is not sustainable, and
No.
I feel like it's all these companies that are like trying to push us back into like a cable model because they could actually pay
Mm, hmm.
like everyone at that, just because it's like an all you can eat model is a, another little company knows that I won't mention it here on this podcast, but I think you'll know what I'm talking about. A company that just decided to give away free movie tickets for
Yep.
$9.99 a month.
Sure.
Uh, we all know that an all you can eat model is not sustainable. So,
No. Nope.
but yeah, but yeah. But congratulations to SAG-AFTRA that all the
Yes.
actors can get
Woo.
back to work, and yeah. Um, but without further ado, Natalie, should we get into our review for Goodfellas?
Let's do it.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Hey, Mom, what do you think?
You look like a gangster.
I know I'd
By the time I grew up, there was 30 billion a year in cargo moving through Idlewild Airport. And believe me, we tried to steal every bit of it.
What do you do?
I'm in construction.
He's not Jewish.
That was a clip from the trailer from Goodfellas, the 1990 film directed by Martin Scorsese. I'm just going to read the synopsis here from IMDb. The story of Henry Hill and his life in the mafia, covering his relationship with his wife Karen and his mob partners, Jimmy Conway and Tommy DeVito. Natalie, we were talking off the record about Goodfellas.
Hmm.
And you said this is one of your favorite movies of all time, right?
This is definitely in my top five.
Yeah. Like I said, like in the start of this podcast, I have never seen this film before. So I know what, I'm just gonna let you do your initial thoughts on this rewatch of Goodfellas. Like, what are your initial thoughts of?
Well, so I count this in my top five because every time I see it on television, and it's on AMC tomorrow,
Hmm.
I watch it. I will stop what I'm doing and I'll usually sit down and watch it. I don't care where it is in the movie. I'll just pick up and I'll know like what's going on. And so it's very rewatchable. I actually didn't see this movie until about 6 years ago. And so I had heard of it but I hadn't watched it. And once I watched it, I was like, okay, I want to watch it again tomorrow. And so it's definitely one of those movies. And what I really like is I love how the movie lulls you into normalizing the lifestyle here, right? The audiences get to experience that in different ways. And then everything goes haywire. And this is I've heard this a lot and I agree with this. Some people have said this is where Martin Scorsese peaked. And for me, this is like the epitome of good film during this time. We don't get films like this anymore. And it's timeless. It doesn't matter when you watch this, it still evokes the same feelings. And so the whole movie gets flipped on its head and it just stops glamorizing this lifestyle and really shoots you with reality, which I love. And I love gangster films. I've seen almost every gangster film. They're like up there with kung fu movies for me. So
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny because it's kind of a little bit of polar opposite to me. I don't like gangster films.
okay.
I think that I've seen the Departed. I don't care for it. I feel like Martin Scorsese's kind of over stylized like violence.
Mm-hmm.
It bothers me. Like I don't mind seeing violence in movies, but the way Martin Scorsese has always kind of like portrayed violence, it always kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know why. Maybe that's just it's obviously just a personal like problem
No,
like for
no,
me,
no.
but
I like that. I agree with you on that. That's what I thought about Killers of the Flower Moon. I
mhm,
felt like it was violence for the sake of violence. And when you take a step back and realize he is a gangster film director, then you understand why the violence looks like that in most of his movies.
yeah, exactly. But Goodfellas, I profanity coming. I fucking love Goodfellas. I fucking love this
Yes.
movie. This
Yes.
this movie like floored me on so many levels. I love. I think the thing that I love like the most like about this movie is just like the narration,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because like it, obviously like this movie is based on a true story. Like these
Yes.
characters uh are real people. And what I loved here is like with the narration, it kind of adds like a documentary style
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to like to tell the story. But Martin Scorsese is a very cinematic like filmmaker, so it's like it's him kind of like blending like the two styles, which I absolutely love. I love like when filmmakers blend like two different genres together, and just like the cross cutting, like the jump cuts, like the way he uses music to
Mm-hmm.
flow like through this entire movie. Like this movie's 145 minutes, and
Yeah, it's like 2 hours, 26 minutes. Yeah.
I didn't feel like
No,
any of that length.
it
This
rushes
movie
by.
moves. This movie moves.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But this is kind of be a little turn because as I mentioned, this is like my first watch after this movie like ended, or
Mm-hmm.
throughout this entire movie. I just couldn't think. I know you haven't seen like this all of the show, but Community, the
Mm-hmm.
chicken fingers episode, that was going through my mind the entire time because that's a Goodfellas like
Yeah, yeah,
homage.
yeah. There's
And,
lots of shows that have done that because that's how poignant that is. Like it just
mhm.
stands out.
I
It's a great film.
I just love like because when I do like a first watch like this and like I've seen like media kind of like
Mm-hmm.
pay homage to it. I love kind of like putting those pieces to the puzzle together because I can see where the like where the blueprint is. Like this is the
Mhm.
blueprint for like gangster movies.
Mhm.
I know
Mhm.
everyone likes to talk about like The Godfather, which I haven't seen. I haven't seen The Godfather, but
So this is what I think I think Goodfellas is the antidote to The Godfather. Scorsese just refuses to romanticize or excuse organized crime. They aren't operatic figures. They aren't tragic heroes. They're not rebels. They're not nice at all. They're thieves. They're murderers. They're liars. They live in fear. And if the law doesn't catch them, then they usually get a violent end anyway. And so I love that this film manages to show the attraction of a life of crime, but like it throws in that reality that I think a lot of gangster films tried to imitate, but this is like the original.
yeah, I totally agree with you. And the problem that I have with Martin Scorsese today is that he feel like, especially like Wolf of Wall Street. Wolf of Wall Street, another
Hmm.
one. Like
Hmm.
I do love Wolf of Wall Street, but the problem that I have with that movie is the way people react to it after is that they start looking up to Jordan Belfort, and you shouldn't be
Mm.
looking up to him because he's a problematic like figure.
Hmm.
And the way Martin Scorsese kind of portrays Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street, he is like he's glorifying him. He's
Hmm.
glorifying
Hmm.
him, and that's why people have like that reaction, want to be just like Jordan Belfort and step on the little guy. The thing that's different about Henry Hill in this movie is that you see like his struggle, and you see why he enters like the mafia, because
Sure.
he wants a better life, but he's not like, throughout the time you see like the struggle that people in the mafia actually have go through, like the violence and how it wears down a person. It's not glorifying Henry Hill at all. You see his struggle throughout the entire movie, not at the beginning.
I would say that it almost accidentally romanticizes the gangster life. Like, yeah, it goes to shit in the end, and everyone, like I said, is
Hmm.
a scumbag. But the earlier scenes show the appeal of the mob life that is just so damn cool, right? It looks so cool. And even, later they refer to it as like a boring life when they're not doing that. And so it doesn't mean to glorify, but I think that's part of the real attraction that initially would draw people into the mafia and this type of lifestyle. And so it really rides a fine line for me of like glamorizing but showing it like it is.
Hmm.
And I just don't know that many directors can do that. And I don't even know that Scorsese knew he had done that at the time. I think this is one of those, it got made and came out like way fucking better than anyone could have ever imagined.
Yeah, it's very grounded, and I've I actually kind of truly believe that Martin Scorsese, like, he wasn't in like the mafia obviously, but
Hmm.
I know he probably did know like people like in his circle that, and kind of like observed like and you could totally tell that throughout like this movie, just about how characters talk, and like how characters react to like certain like events that we'll get into like when we start getting into the breakdown. But it's it I just love like how grounded like this entire film
Well,
is.
this is because it's based off of a book. It's based off
Hmm.
the Wise Guy, who was
Hmm.
written by a real crime reporter that chronicled the real life of Henry Hill. And
Hmm.
so he worked very closely with Martin Scorsese working on this, which I think, again, shows
Hmm.
that like he was, doing his research.
Right, exactly. But Natalie, should we get into like the breakdown of
Yeah,
Goodfellas?
let's do it.
So we start with an introduction with Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta, and he basically, it's basically young. It we start basically at the end, like with uh with uh gangsters like opening up the back of the car, and is it Tommy that's
Hmm.
like stabs the guy, and
Yeah,
then we get a flashback of Henry Hill basically saying, "Oh, I just wanted to be a gangster." I
yeah.
can't remember the line, and we learn like we see like young Henry Hill kind of like growing up in Brooklyn, and just kind of like struggling. I wouldn't say he's struggling to make ends meet, but would you call him a victim of capitalism?
We are all victims of capitalism.
Yeah, yeah, we are victims of capitalism. But
Yes.
it's like I liked like that take just because like this he has a because he has a reason to like join the mafia because he wants like a better life for him and like his mom, and he notices
Hmm.
like he sees like these men that are always like looking so good, and he wants to be just like them, and it's just like, and he sees Jimmy as like a father figure too, and like especially with his mom being a single mother, he kind of like got drawn to like Jimmy. That's what I got from
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
what'd you think of like this first scene?
Yeah, I like that we see immediately how much he idolizes these local mobsters in
Hmm.
his neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and then we get we get like the origin story, and then kind of like uh, we get all of this is done through narration with Henry Hill, and you kind of like this is where I'm just going to just talk a whole bunch why I love this narration, because I normally hate narration in these type of movies because it's kind of lazy filmmaking. But what I love, I already stated this, but I love how this feels like a documentary,
Hmm.
and it's very but Martin Scorsese is like, well, I don't want to make a documentary because documentaries are boring. I'm going to make this cinematic as much as possible. But yeah.
Yeah,
um
the cinematography in this is top notch, and we get glimpses of this in Killers of the Flower Moon. I see some elements where I'm like, oh, he tried, but like again, this is just like everything about this movie is a hit, and it has unforgettable scenes that is the reason why people want to pay homage to it, is it's like unforgettable cinematography.
yeah, and after this introduction we get Henry growing older, and he is trying to rise through the ranks of the mob, and like when we get like all this, I'm starting to get a lot of kind of Breaking Bad vibes as well.
Mm, mhm,
Like
mhm.
this is where it like he wants to be the best. Like he can't he's not settled with just kind of like just being where he's at. He always wants to like strive for like uh strive to be the best. But that's what I got. What you think?
Oh, oh, the driving force of everything these mobsters do and all of their fates is hinged on greed, simply greed.
Hmm.
And they disguise it as wanting a better life, and but it's greed.
Yeah. Um it definitely is greed and capitalism.
Capitalism again.
Capitalism
Yep.
is destroying us all. And then we get Henry meeting Karen. Karen, and I just want to uh, just say this: justice for Karen. Uh, I have an issue. Here's the thing that I have an issue with the whole Karen stuff. Martin Scorsese has always had issues with kind of like writing female characters,
Mhm, mhm.
and the Karen is definitely a huge like I feel like it's a little bit better, but not much better. I have a problem with the way Karen was treated because she could have just left. Like she but the entire time like you get lines of dialogue where it's like I love this man so much, and she's just, and then she changed her mind and stays. It's just yeah.
I The thing is, I think this shows how this was back then, right? It
Hmm.
just the draw of everything, the money and everything, just drew them in. They love these riches, this luxury,
Hmm.
and in some ways I find them just as bad, if not worse, than the gangsters, because they try to apply and maintain some sort of moral superiority and willful ignorance, but they know what their husbands are doing. And so as far as I know, that's pretty like the accurate portrayal in how she was in the book.
Mm-hmm. So it was an accurate portrayal of Karen, right?
I think most of those wives back then, you know, the reason they're not saying anything is they're getting like fur coats and jewelry, and they're going out to fancy restaurants, and like it's the equivalent of hush money to just go, you know, don't ask me about what I do as long as you keep getting these nice things. And they were content to do that because so far there hadn't been any real repercussions for this.
Kind of like this might be a bit of a stretch, but like a Skylar White
Yes,
from
yes,
Breaking
exactly.
Bad.
Hmm.
How she was. I feel like Skylar White was a little bit more powerful
Yeah.
than Karen, but she was still told to just kind of like just like stay in line with like with her husband
Hmm.
because her
Hmm.
husband knows best. Even though we all know that like we were
Yeah.
seeing the downfall of Henry Hill
Yeah.
like throughout this entire movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just have to. I just wanted to like shout out Karen just because she
Oh
deserves
yeah.
better. She deserves
Yeah,
better.
she does. She does. She does, but she loves those fur coats.
Yeah, well, how can you not? Who
Yeah.
doesn't love a fur coat? So,
Glamorous.
well, it will actually probably not because we don't want PETA to come after this
Oh yeah.
podcast. It's like
That's right.
fake fur. So
Faux
faux
fur.
fur. Yeah. But yeah, we get like the Henry and Karen that like they fall in love and they start a family, and then we move on to the heist, the big heist
Mm.
for this film. And this is the heist that basically gets the authorities like on them. But
Mm-hmm.
I loved I love this heist, the way it was filmed. It was incredible. What you think about this heist?
Oh, I loved this heist. You know, movies like Casino and stuff. This is
Hmm.
where they're drawing inspiration from, is this
Hmm.
sort of visual of what we think of when we think of a heist. And
Hmm.
again, greed. I feel like things could have maybe been okay after the heist had they not gotten stupid and greedy.
Yeah, if they could have just laid low,
Just
like
chilled,
they got all the money like
smoke some
from this
weed.
heist. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I like how a
Just
little
chill.
callback to Stoned and Social.
Stay stoned, stay social, stay safe, right?
Well, no,
Stay away from
don't
the
say
cops.
social. So
With
stoned and
your people, not
oh yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
with your family, with your family, with your
Hashtag
posse.
family.
Please don't. uh, yeah. Yeah. But like then after this heist, then we get like this kind of this whole downfall, like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
like this
Mm-hmm.
whole. I love the way Ray Liotta plays like this entire
Mm,
character like after this heist, because
perfect.
you see the way he's dressed. I was noticing a lot of like the clothing like
Mm-hmm.
for
Costumes,
this
yeah.
like yeah, the costumes. And I like the way he is dressed at the beginning. He's like super nice suit, and then like after the heist you kind of start seeing like the suit not being so pressed anymore. His
Mm-hmm.
hair is kind of messed up, and I just like the way like that's represented, like showing like his mental health of like everything that he was going through. And it's really great.
I think I like this too because you mentioned Wolf of Wall Street earlier, and this is the same with Goodfellas. Is
Hmm.
you spend about 2/3 of the movie idolizing and envying the life of these shitty people, and then in the end they fuck everything up, and you're like, oh, they're stupid, and we don't feel sorry for them anymore. Like they both, in this one, the main characters spend the first part of the movie promoting their ethos and how they're so much smarter and better than regular people, only to betray all of that for self-preservation. And so I really like how it plays on that, because you, again, the glamorization of this, I think, was the big draw. And people literally felt, like they say in the movie, untouchable, right? Because no one's getting in trouble. So they really felt like they were above everything.
Yeah, and like that's what people in the mafia really how they really act. They're just like,
Hmm.
we're above the law. Like we make our own law. Like we like this I don't want to use this word again, but this is our family.
Yeah.
We like this is what I think. This is this is the thing that I love like the most about this movie. It's when Tommy like has like kills like one of his first uh, kills like the first guy uh like in this movie. I think it's it's the guy in the trunk, right?
Hmm.
Like he stabs him with a knife, and like literally the next scene we get him just eating with his mom, and
Yeah.
I love like that transition of
Hmm.
like this super like kind of like dark with like the way that, like it's shot, like it's like very red and dark, and then it jump cuts to Tommy's mom and they're just eating like around the table and just like it, like Tommy's mom has nothing, like knows nothing about like what's going on. I just love like that contrast, like kind of like these people are like regular people, like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Goodfellas' backbone is its, you're mentioning family stuff, but like is its love story. Karen and Henry are members of an extended family who are dysfunctional.
Hmm.
But in the end they still trust each other. And
Hmm.
so it is like there's so many complexities and layers to this movie.
Yes, totally. I love the found family aspect, like always,
Hmm.
and I even like through like these hard times that they're going through, I love that they're still kind of sticking together too,
Hmm.
and like they're still kind of looking out for each other, and like and well, except for like the this one scene, like it's the scene with shoot, what's his name, I think it's Tommy that confronts about the car. Who's the guy that buys the car like with his new wife, like towards the end of the movie?
Um, it's not Tony. I can't remember
Oh, shoot. I was hoping.
because I didn't watch it recently. I've seen it so much, and like again, it's on tomorrow, so I'm gonna watch it tomorrow.
Okay, is it Paulie? Paulie.
Polly, okay.
Yeah, he buys like the car, and like Tommy is the one who gets upset with him because it's like you're supposed to keep a low profile. Like, why are you buying like this brand new car and like being uh like just stay out of sight? And he was confronting him about that, and I'm just like, that is something that like an actual family member would do. Like, kind of like looking out, like when a family member does something stupid, that's when you uh that's when you call them out for it.
Hmm.
That's what I love most about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good moments that are largely built around the characterization in this movie. The slap on the face that Paulie gives Henry Hill, telling him to smarten the fuck up, was a powerful moment where Paulie knows full well what Henry is going off the deep end, and he won't just let him do it. And so I love all of the different ways that each character plays with Henry Hill, because this Ray Liotta, for me, he's always Henry Hill. There's sometimes when I watch someone in a role that like that's it, I see them as that person all the time. It doesn't matter what I've seen Ray Liotta in. It's just he's always Henry now. Like he's just always Henry to me.
Yeah. I haven't seen Ray Liotta in very many things, but if I do see him in other things, I will always see him as this, and I'll start seeing characters that are like Henry Hill. Like I mentioned, like Breaking Bad, like Walter
Mhm.
White. There's
Mhm.
definitely some cross similarities to Henry Hill of just
Mhm.
someone that is on the inside and just starts. So someone that was on the outside looking in, and then breaks their way in, and then starts and then crumbles all the way down. Uh, but back to like we talked about like the downfall and betrayal after the heist, and moving on after that, Henry turns uh, to an informant of the FBI. He decides
Mhm.
to become informant for the FBI, and this decision puts him at odds with at odds with his former associates. So what you think about this decision for Henry to?
Never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. Those are the two important lessons you know, Henry, and he chooses to defy this advice, which leads to his outcome.
And well, I think like at this point, especially when I'm watching, especially when I'm as I'm watching like this movie, I feel like throughout the entire movie, Henry is wanting to uh always like be better, and
Mhm.
like he wants more money. Like he can never
Greed.
have like enough. It's greed. We mentioned this, but you see it in his eyes when you see when Tommy kills like that first person.
Yeah.
Henry basically like takes a step back and be like,
He's like,
"Whoa, I didn't
whoa.
want bloodshed. Like
Yeah.
this is getting dark." And
But that's because he's not been being real about what the mafia is. He's idolized them, but
mhm.
it's only been the parts that he kind of likes. And now he's faced with like the reality of being a gangster.
Yeah, and you can't just filter the stuff that you like. Like that's not how
Yeah.
life works. Like
Nope.
that's a that's what I love. Like what love about that is because like he saw like it's basically like what the audience saw in like Wolf of Wall Street, and they're glorifying that. Like I want to be
Hmm.
just like that, and then they turn into like day traders and they lose all their money. I'm like, well, it's like it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I I recommend that like also if you like this, you check out History Buffs videos on Goodfellas
hmm
because he gives some details about the real life Henry Hill that does make him much more sympathetic. And
hmm
some of this was a little amped up. This movie makes me want to see Taxi. I've never seen Taxi, but I've heard it is
I haven't seen
amazing.
it either, but
And so this is one of the few Scorsese films that makes me want to go watch that because it's even older than this.
hmm yeah, it's like I want to watch more Scorsese movies. Like after watching Goodfellas, like that's the thing. Like this is uh I like this movie. Like we mentioned, it's like it's such a breeze to
Hmm.
watch, and like for someone that doesn't like gangster movies, I like it makes me want to watch like another gangster movie by Martin Scorsese because it feels like he knows the genre like so well. It's great. But then we get into the witness protection, like when the film
Hmm. Hmm.
concludes, and kind of like a little bit before that. This is when like the scene with Karen, like in the alley, and like this is when is it Jimmy that was going to like kill Karen?
Yes.
Um, she wises up and just like
Mhm.
I love that reaction like on her face like as she's like walking in the alley, and like in my mind I'm like, girl, don't go down that
Yes,
alley."
I
And I'm
know. Like,
like,
what are you
and
doing?
this is the one movie where it's like she doesn't go down the alley, and I'm like, I'm glad that she didn't, because that's
Yeah.
it's just the way I love like the shot too for that, where she goes back to the car and the camera like pans up and you see the "don't walk" like
Mhm.
sign.
Mhm.
I love this is that visual imagery, but What did you think about? Were you telling Karen not to?
Oh, of course. I was yelling. I was like, "What is she doing?" Because I didn't know anything about Henry Hill before. I knew it was based on a true story, but I made sure
Mhm.
not to look it up because I just had heard it was a great movie.
Yeah,
And so yeah, this definitely I was convinced she was going to go down the alley.
yeah. I was just throughout this entire movie, just became like a Karen stan. Throughout, I know like the movie is about Henry Hill, but that's the like I was worried for Karen. Even like the scene where she like was she finds out that Henry is cheating on her,
Mhm, mhm.
and she confronts him, and the shot where she is on top of him with the gun, like that's a
Oh yeah.
brilliant shot with the audience just looking down the barrel of the gun from Henry's perspective, and she is calling him out
Oh
uh,
yes.
about about
Everything.
cheating on him and cheating on him,
Yeah.
everything, all the people that he hurt, and how she wants to leave. And I at that moment I'm just like, you could have just pulled the trigger. I'm
Yeah,
like,
Henry was so close to yeah, and that's again, that's what I love. It's this love story. Like
mhm.
they really just they're insane.
They are they are insane.
Yep.
But the thing is, I know this is a true story,
Yeah.
but it's and like it's based on a book. But the entire time I was just saying like, hey, like Karen, just get
Let's
out,
go, girl. I
just get
know.
out. Because I've seen plenty of people in that situation, and my entire like it's not worth the stress.
No.
Even if they do love each other, it's not worth the stress and and trauma to go through it. But that's just me. That's just how that's. But
You've never worn a faux fur coat.
no, no.
Stranger
I
too.
just I don't know. I was just Team Karen the entire time. But
That's wild.
yeah. But yeah. But kind of going back a little bit to the witness protection. Uh, hold on.
You mentioned some of the themes that this movie presents. And I think this movie brilliantly examines themes of working class masculinity
Mm-hmm.
and aspirations and the desire to belong and do something along the way. That desire can drive us to do things that we'd never dream of doing otherwise. And I think it's got a lot of universal and human themes in that way because you said it, right? Henry's in his mind, he just wants a better life, right? He just wants
Mm-hmm.
a better life. And this kind of gets blurred along the way where his idea of better gets skewed by things that are certainly not good for it in the long run.
Right. And it's just like I hate to bring this up, but this is like what happens to uh individuals that are in like low income neighborhoods. Like
Hmm.
they're tired of like living in poverty and let and just kind of and struggling. They're looking for any way
Hmm.
to like, even whether that way is illegal or legal, they're looking for any way to like get a leg up on on like the next person, just so they can say that like that they succeeded. Because like as human beings, we all just want like success, and it's
Hmm.
like like whether we and Henry just saw that as like he didn't care how he was successful. He just wanted to be successful, and he saw the consequences of that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, but yeah, we get as as the film concludes, like Henry is entering the witness protection program, and he's testifying, as I mentioned, with like, and you said like you don't snitches get stitches, snitches get
Yep.
stitches.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we all know like what happens at the end, like
Hmm.
with everything, and it's but that is basically Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese. I love this film so much. I think I might actually. I don't have TV, but if I were to see this playing like anywhere, like at a bar, I will have like the bartender like turn it up and play it for everyone, just because I feel like this movie needs to be seen by
Yes.
everyone. And like I know we mentioned Wolf of Wall Street like a lot. I used to recommend that like to for everyone to watch, but I truly think that this movie is Martin Scorsese's like best movie. This is his like magnum opus
Yeah,
uh, uh
it's
like
good.
type film, because as we mentioned, it's like we both saw Killers of the Flower Moon, and we've talked about how that movie just just the glorifies the violence and glorifies Leo's character, and we've talked about multiple times how like this movie is glorifies Henry Hill, but also shows him on a from a very human level. This like all
Hmm.
these characters in here are very are very human, like
Yeah,
they're totally believable. I know like it's a true story, but it's the character work done here is just really great. But
it
yeah.
is. I like the whole package. Great actors, great dialogue. I like movies skipping over decades, showing the differences.
Hmm.
For me, there's just little not to like about this, and the grittiness is great. And so, it's just an all around good film.
Yeah. Um. But do you have a like a favorite character? Th- I
um, I don't I don't know if I have a favorite character because very early on in this film, I'm like, oh, all of these people are like
are bad.
shitty. But I
Yeah.
love Sandy. I
Oh,
love
Sandy's great.
Sandy a lot. So probably her, but also I just love Debbie Mazar. So
I I know all of these characters are. I know that's the weird question to ask, just because like you're supposed to like hate all these people because they're doing despicable things, but the person that I like is Polly.
oh yeah.
Is because he's the quiet one, like sitting like he sees everything that's that's going to be going down. I always like the quiet characters because they're the ones that are the most knowledgeable about the situation, and
Hmm.
if he did speak up, he probably would have uh it wouldn't be the ending of this movie wouldn't be would have happened the way it did
Yeah.
if he spoke up. And I don't know, it's and that's another downfall for like for this group.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I mentioned, this is and like I mentioned, that was Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese. Natali, um, you have a little segment, right?
I
Before.
do. I do. While I was, whenever I'm watching movies or doing anything, I like to get my munchie of the week on. But tonight, because I knew I was going to be, thank you. I knew I was going to be doing this, and I was like, let me find something unique for this so I can talk about this. And so I've put it on Instagram as well. But my munchie of the day with you is something called a Casbar. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this. It sounded interesting enough. It's by Hostess.
I'm
Um,
googling right now.
it's got soft chocolate cake, cream, candy crunch, and it's got caramel.
That
For
sounds good.
me, this just spoke mobster because on the package it says sweet crunchy pieces, and then it's got caramel,
Hmm.
which is fucking hard to get out of your teeth, and so it's like hard to get out of the mafia. So I liked these because it seemed like something they might eat, maybe like Casbah. Like I can hear them saying that.
I love those. Yeah, you know what? I can definitely hear Tommy saying that he wants
These
uh,
things are amazing. I'm eating one right now.
those look delicious. I will put a picture up for the people watching like this on YouTube. But uh, I love like the themes that you use there. Like once you get in the mafia, it's hard to get out, and like that is basically that's basically the theme for Goodfellas. But uh, yeah, thanks for hijacking the Real Livers podcast and bringing over the Munchie of the Week.
So
Uh,
welcome.
yeah, but I'm a little jealous though. I'm a little jealous because you have like a little Munchie of the Week at the end of your show. Everyone should go listen to the Stoned and Social podcast everywhere where you listen to podcasts. But I need a little segment at the end of my show.
Yeah.
So thank you, Natalie, for kind of like bringing like this first edition of Let's Get Physical. Maybe I'll put the Olivia Newton-John song in there, but I'll probably get a copyright strike. But
Let's get a lo-fi version of it.
yeah, I'll get a lo-fi version. But this is the first segment of Let's Get Physical. I've been having a really great time buying a bunch of like physical media just because streaming services suck. We talked about the price hikes and stuff like that. And
hmm
stuff can go away just like with a stuff can go away like from one day to the next, and I want to have this like in my collection. So the physical media I want to highlight, we talked about this on your podcast, Natalie, and that is Barbie. I picked it
Oh
up.
yeah.
I picked up the 4K. Hold on, focus. I picked up the 4K UHD edition of Greta Gerwig's Barbie, and I have watched this countless times already. So yeah,
Nice.
it's a great Barbie is a great film. I love it. Another Warner Brothers film, unfortunately, but everyone should go pick that one up. Barbie on 4K Ultra HD. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to highlight. But Natalie, we have approached the hour mark of the Real Livers podcast. We've talked about Goodfellas. We've talked about our last four watched. You had a Munchie of the Week. I had a
hmm
physical media item. We talked about a lot of things, but where can people find you
They can always
online?
find us. Always find us online at Instagram. We are there at Stoned and Social, like rock and roll.
Mhm.
Or come over to the digital crib. We will be playing Goodfellas, don't worry, at www.stonedandsocial.com. Otherwise, we're in your ears every Wednesday at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And you should definitely tune in at 4:20 Eastern Standard Time to and listen to the Stone and Social podcast. It's one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to. Natalie, you're such a great friend. Thank you for coming on the Real Livers podcast to talk about Goodfellas. If you made it to the end of this podcast, please give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube. Also, give us a rate and review on anywhere where you listen to podcasts. You can follow me everywhere on social media, not Twitter anymore. I deactivated my Twitter account, but you can catch me on Threads, Instagram, YouTube, with the username at Marley Loves Film. Let's talk about film together.
Now get in your shine box.
But yeah, for the Real Livers podcast, my name is Marley Silverbrand,
I'm Nat from Stone and Social.
and keep watching movies. We'll see you next week.